Well, now, my next guest pedalled his way to fame on the seat of a bicycle made for three, no less. He was one of the goodies, the team that had the happy knack of making everybody laugh. That was from infants right up to the old age pensioners. Well, today he's established as a highly successful actor, writer and personality. In fact, I'm quite sure that these days he's got a bicycle all to himself. We're delighted to welcome Tim Brooke-Taylor. But
it is
familiar.
a little bit,
Yes.
Yeah.
Looks good, though.
Half-mast, it looks like.
I was just thinking back on the success of the goodies. I mean, it's still running all over the world, and I think what people loved about it most was the fact that you did all your stunt work. But you were kind of right up to here all the time, weren't you?
There's a reason why I did most of the really painful things, is because I used to go off and do other things while Bill and Graham wrote it. And I used to do things like somebody drops from a bridge onto a passing car. Tim. So they would run. So each time, that's why I did most of the dangerous things or the difficult things. We were also very stupid, the three of us, because stuntmen, there are two types of stuntmen. There's the big sort of rabbiting type stuntman, and there's the one that can really do it, that keeps quiet and does, like a good mountaineer, plans it well. Now, we were the stupid type, did a lot of talking, but we sort of never planned it, so we'd fall and hurt ourselves the whole time and wonder, well, that hurt, and I wonder why we fell off that, and it hurt. Now, Graham Garden actually was extraordinary because he's one of the best fallers in the business that I know, and he got elbow pads and back pads and pads for the back of his head and all round here and back, because it can hurt to fall down. Leapt up in the air and landed on his front. We had a sort of built-in thing that we had to hurt ourselves.
Wasn't there a classic one about the fairy godmother or something whizzing through the air?
Yeah, but that happened here, actually, in the studios here. That was terrifying because Kirby wire is the wire that Peter Pan flies on, and I had to be a fairy godmother, naturally.
Typecasting it.
Typecasting again. And I had to leap off this thing, and the man was demonstrating it, and he leapt off and went right back into the scenery and almost broke his back and said, "Don't worry, I'll see it's all right," and the seconds were ticking away. And, "Well, I think it'll be all right now, go." And so, very, very frightened fairy godmother. If you ever see the goodies and Seven Dwarfs, there's a very frightened fairy godmother.
And you trying to remember your lines all the way, I
Yeah,
suppose?
actually saying the lines, thinking, I'm going to die, but keep talking, I'm going to die.
So I take it that you ended up in Casualty quite a bit.
Yes. In fact, there was one time at the BBC, which is, as you know, is very civil service bound, and we were up on our three-seater bike. Two of these wires that never break, one of them broke. And the other two slipped off the back, and I caught my wrist between the handlebar and the brake, and it cut it very badly, and the blood was squirting out, and an electrician actually fainted, and electricians don't faint.
That's true.
That is true. And I went upstairs to where there's a nurse upstairs who happened to be French. And blood was pouring out like this, and I was trying to be brave and crying, actually, but I was trying to be brave. And she said, "What is your staff number?" I said, "Fred, I don't have a staff number, I'm just bleeding to death here." And she said, "I need your staff number, what were you doing?" I said, "Well, I haven't got a staff number, but I was dressed as a mouse, and I was riding a three-seater bike in the sky." And she said, "Don't be so stupid." And I said, "I'm still dying." I'd got a French accent by then, obviously. And eventually she patched it up, and we went back to the bike, and it was on the wires that never break, and they broke again. And I crashed the ground, hit my back, and I got up there, and I said, "You're not going to believe this. Don't tell me you were dressed as a mouse and you fell off a bike." Yes, it's true.
Well, although we associate you so much with comedy, I mean, weren't you really cut out for law at one stage?
I have a law degree.
Oh, you actually have a law degree?
I have a law degree. I'm an honorary doctor of laws, would you believe? Oh, which is a terrible cheat, really. An honorary one means they give it to you for being a nice person.
I wonder why.
Yeah. But I studied at Cambridge, and in fact most of the people I've worked with were there at the same time, and I think like John Cleese was a direct contemporary of mine, and we studied law together, and we used to sit in lectures occasionally and start to giggle because some of the funniest law cases are actually rather sick, but tort, for example, which is a type of law where disasters happen. And you've only got to hear that some old case, there's a runaway carriage, and round the corner there is a pregnant woman. Now, you know something ghastly is going to happen round the corner. Sure enough, it does. 400 Italians are on a boat. Well, you know that their days are numbered for a starter. And probably the funniest sketch I've ever been in was a legal sketch, which John basically wrote. And That was my legal training. He actually helped me through my exams because he used to go to lectures more than I did. And the lecturer suddenly came in with a subject he'd never lectured on before, and John thought, he's quite bright for 6'5". He suddenly thought, he's brought this out of order, so he must have set a question in the exam and forgotten to lecture about it. So he told me, and B for Brooke-Taylor and C for Cleese were fairly close together. And up came the question, and John had given me all the sense, so so we've been working together ever since.
Well, you were president of the Footlights when you were at Cambridge, but I mean, it's shame on you. I'm absolutely disgusted with you. Weren't you the very last one to bar women from actually going into the club?
Into the club?
Well,
not in the club. I didn't actually bar women from being in the club.
I was talking
about. I did actually. I've often tried to justify why I barred women from the club. I think one of the reasons was Germaine Greer was one of the women. And a very nice fella he is too. But then, no, that's awfully cheap, and I rather liked it. But we were very naive. We'd only just come from school, and to be I know it sounds silly nowadays, but in those days we were terrified of women. I say myself, and Bill Oddie was never terrified of women. Mice, but not women. John Cleese was terrified of women. I mean, a girlfriend of his I knew, he'd been out the year with her, and she said, you know, he hasn't even held my hand yet. Now, nowadays, I mean, in the club,
Say no more.
in the club, as you said, would be, and we were very naive, and we were absolutely frightened. And the only justification I can say is that the Footlights is a revue club, as you know, and we were very silly. Now, if there had been girls there that we felt we ought to impress, we'd have stopped being silly. We'd have been silly in a different way, of course, but we would have got very self-conscious and become actors, because there is a difference between doing review and being an actor. And there were a lot of actors at Cambridge at the time. They were very splendid actors, and they still talk like that now, even when they're cockneys. They go, poor blimey, I'm an actor, and the difference. Trevor Nunn was a director. I'm rabbiting on, aren't I?
That's great.
Sorry. Trevor Nunn was a director there once, and we went to the Edinburgh Festival, and there was the review people and the proper actors. And the review people made the money because people used to go and see the Footlights, and we were doing a rather intense Brecht play in the earlier part of the evening. And when we were in rehearsals, now proper actors do things like pretend they're trees in rehearsals. Nothing to do with trees, but that's a good acting exercise. Now, we had to climb a mountain. We were told by Trevor that this room was a mountain. We looked at it, it looked like bare boards to us, but we thought, well, if it's a mountain, it's a mountain. And we started to climb the mountain. Now, after about 5 minutes, I had altitude sickness. And I looked around, and there was John Cleese and Graham Chapman and Bill Oddie and Eric Idle, and they were all going like, and we looked up, all the actors were smoking cigarettes and talking like this because they'd gone through these exercises before, but we really climbed that mountain. Useless piece of exercise. That's how the RSC keeps going.
But looking how splendid you actually are in your Union Jack waistcoat, it's on the front of your new book as well. So now that you've written this book, Rule Britannia, I mean, tell me what a true Brit really is.
It's very difficult, and one of the reasons I wrote the book was A, because I was asked to, and B, because people would say, what is your character in The Goodies? Who is he? Where did he come from? And I thought, well, I know instinctively how he reacts, and let me find out. So I sort of started to break things down into what were the traditions of how you got married and how the Empire and the Raj and this sort of thing, which were all behind the character. And eventually, as we say, very kindly said, the book came out just in time for Christmas.
So we still have no further insight into what a true Brit really is.
Well, actually, there are definite true Brits, and I don't want to get too specific about it, because the character I played in The Goodies itself was, I like to think, a caricature. I mean, that really was I was the right-wing loony, Bill was the little bolshy left-wing, and Graham was the SDP. He was one on the fence in the middle, basically, and we always thought that, actually, if you think of it, The Last of the Summer Wine is a sort of geriatric Goodies, I always thought. Lovely programme. Anyway, this right-wing loony was based on a lot of characters, and to be perfectly honest, I don't really like this character. I think the upper-class twit and the true Brit, there are some splendid true Brits, but at the same time, there are a lot of very arrogant, nationalistic, smug people. And in the book, it's an easy read, and there are a lot of very silly stories in it about how the British react to certain things and the right things to do. Also, some quite tough things about how they reacted in wartime and how they lack the sense of humor. There are moments, I must admit, where I like it. There's this sense of the right thing to do. There's a very nice thing that I found where there's this respect for the professions. Now, when you say law, suddenly people think, oh, gosh, he's a lawyer or nearly a lawyer. There's a respect. I don't know why, but there is a respect. Now, there was a man who was ill in bed. The doctor came round, saw him, went downstairs. Now, the man tottered down the stairs and found his wife in the arms of a doctor. Now, out of respect for the doctor, he didn't hit him. He hit his wife instead.
I love the one on cricket. I mean, although men tend to, well, you say that true British men like their women, but I think they prefer their cricket, don't they?
J.M. Barrie, actually, he said a good woman is better than scoring 50 at cricket, even better than scoring 99 at cricket. Beyond that, I will not go.
Tim, thank you very much. I know we're going to see you on the telly, well, fairly soon. You've got a new series, haven't you, coming up?
With Richard O'Sullivan, yes, called Me and My Girl, for this company, which we'll see next year, in fact. And also making a programme for America, which is slightly naughty comedy for America, shipping it out to the colonies. Naughty
They'll love
comedy.
it, I'm sure. Tim Brooke-Taylor, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Well, we're going to take a break there, but of course we'll be back in a moment along with Jamie Lee Curtis, Jenny Agutter, Rodney Bewes, and a little later on in the programme, Terry Scott.